Hello everyone, welcome back to Rhythm Harmony Melody. This is the blog where I talk about music, and in this video I'm going to give you my top 10 favorite female singers. So these are going to be from all genres, not just rock, but most of them probably will be rock because that tends to be what I like. So I'm not going to waste any time, I'm going to get right into this list, but I first want to say that this list is not in order, so like the number one on the list is not going to be the number one. I don't think, well, actually, I can pick a number one, but the rest of them are all going to be all over the place. So I'm going to start with what I would say would be my favorite female singer. If I had to pick one, if somebody was holding a gun to my head and said you have to pick one, it would be Lana Del Rey. So I actually put her in my last video for my favorite top 10 bands or artists. And so yeah, she's my favorite female singer, and I always struggle with words when I'm describing her because her voice is so beautiful and so ethereal and just like one of the things that I love about music in general is when it kind of sends you into another dimension, like you don't even feel like you're on the planet anymore, and her voice does that. So her music too is so beautiful. It's, yeah, if you have heard her before, then you know what I mean, but if you've never heard her, her voice is just so, it's like sultry, very sexy. She sings a lot about America, and the themes tend to be trendy, I'm not even using the right words. Basically, she's so she's so good at picturing a scene, like making you imagine things. I'm doing a horrible job at explaining this, but everybody has probably have heard of her anyway, so it's not like I really have to go into it too much, but yeah, she's the only female singer that I never get sick of listening to. I've liked her from the beginning. All of her albums, well, I shouldn't say all. There's one of her albums that I don't like, and I don't know what happened there, but like most of her albums, like 90% of them are amazing. And you know, I did see her live once, and she was good live. But you know, this is what I always prefer about bands as opposed to one singer. I like it when bands, you know, bands do better live. They just do. One singer standing up there by themselves is not really that entertaining. She did have screens with videos and things, and she did some kind of cool stuff on stage, but I'm never going to say that she is one of the best performers ever. She's just one of the best singers ever. So, yeah, that's the best. She's my favorite. And I also want to say that this list is going to be based on their voice. So I'm not going to go by how good of a performer they are, how good of a frontman or frontwoman they are. I am just strictly going by voice. So when it comes to voice, she's the number one. So moving on to the rest of my list, these are not in any order. The next one is Rebecca Del Rio, and she is obviously not a very famous person, but you might have seen her in a couple of movies. She's not just a singer, but she's also an actress, and my favorite two songs by her are in movies, and one of them is Mulholland Drive, the David Lynch movie. She sings the song Llorando. It's actually a Spanish version of Roy Orbison's Crying, and that I think is one of the most beautiful songs ever sung, ever whatever. And then the other thing that she did that I really loved was in a movie called Southland Tales, and she did a version of the Star Spangled Banner and the scene in that movie is so good too, like it fits perfectly. But yeah, she's got another voice that's wow. And I don't know why she's not more famous, because her voice is just that great. So the next one on my list, I'm sure most of you will have heard of, and that is Ann Wilson from Heart. So Heart is Ann and Nancy Wilson, and I feel bad for not saying Nancy too, but most people agree that Ann's voice is better. She's the one that sings, you know, more powerfully, more forcefully. Like, she probably doesn't even need a microphone. to be able to hear her. So yeah, she's one of my favorite singers, always has been. And yeah, nothing against Nancy, like her voice is great too. And when they sing together, I've mentioned it before how much I love harmonies. So yeah, when they harmonize, it's just great. So yeah, Ann Wilson of Heart. The next one on my list is another one that most people probably have not heard of, but she's got an amazing voice, and that is Kellyanna. So she's a Celtic pagan type singer, and a lot of her songs are about gods and goddesses and nature and paganism and, you know. So she's not everybody's cup of tea. She's definitely not rock, but I really like a lot of pagan music, and she's got a beautiful voice. And one song, if you want to check her out, I would check out the song called Stonehenge. In that song, she overlays her voice in layers. So it's like she's singing, it's kind of like she's singing around, you know, where she starts singing and then she picks up in the next, there's a word for it, and this is where my non-musical knowledge is coming out. Whatever it's called, where they sing for like 10 seconds and then the next thing starts. That's what she does in that song, and that's one of my favorite songs by her. So check that out if you are interested in beautiful female voices, and if you are interested at all in Celtic or pagan themes. The next one on my list is one that everybody's probably heard of, and that is Stevie Nicks. She's always been one of my favorites. I mean, I've always loved Fleetwood Mac, but she stood out as somebody that I could relate to because she's kind of like witchy and earthy, and she's all about, like, nature, and I don't know. She's just great. And everybody that knows Fleetwood Mac is probably going to agree that she's probably the most talented of the band. And it would make sense that she was the most famous when it comes to her solo career. You know, I don't think anybody else has had that successful of a solo career, even in other bands. When you think of other people that have broken free from their original band, Stevie Nicks is like she's known for herself. You know, I think she can probably sell out shows just as well as Fleetwood Mac. So yeah, her voice is beautiful and her songs are beautiful. My favorite song by her is Storms, and that's one that most people don't ever like talk about, and I don't know why, because it's beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful songs ever written. The next person on my list, we're going back to the 80s here with this one. I might have a couple other 80s on my list, but this is Marie Fredriksson, and she was the singer of Roxette. She has passed since, and her voice had always stood out to me as being so flawless and powerful and beautiful. Roxette is not like anywhere near the top of my list as far as favorite artists or bands, but her voice makes, I mean, her voice just wow. You know, like, so yeah, if you are older than 30, you probably know who Roxette was. All right, the next person on my list is a little more popular, and that is Kate Bush. And so she never used to be really popular until recently. Most people probably watching this have probably heard of her from Running Up That Hill, because it just blew up recently, but honestly, I don't think that's one of her best songs. I think her best song is probably Wuthering Heights, which is crazy because she wrote that song when she was like 16 or 17, maybe 18. And she has a very eclectic style, so like not all of her songs are, I guess you'd say, she probably, eclectic. The word eclectic just means strange. Like a lot of strange things. Like you might hear a song by her and think, what the heck is going on here? This is weird. But, you know, the more you listen to it, she's got a lot of songs that are really unique. So I love her for that and her voice. Like in Wuthering Heights, oh my god. That's one of the songs that sends me into outer space. I could listen to that song over and over a couple times and just want to keep playing it. So that's why I love Kate Bush, mostly for her songs, and she's just a cool lady. And here's another thing about her. She got her start because David Gilmour from Pink Floyd actually helped her. he helped her produce her first demo. So that's pretty cool. All right, the next person on my list might not be super popular with a lot of people nowadays because she does not sing anymore, and that is Linda Ronstadt. She was big in the 70s and the 80s. She got her start with singing backup for the Eagles. And most people know the Eagles, so she was one of their backup singers, and she ended up going off on her own. And she's, yeah, like I said, you know, if you're over the age of 30, you probably know who she is, but I don't think she sings anymore because she has medical issues, so that's unfortunate because her voice is amazing. The next one on this list is a pretty modern singer, and that is Amy Lee from Evanescence. Her voice is so good, and I recently saw Evanescence live. I didn't catch their whole set though, but from what I got there for, it was amazing. She's just, yeah, love her voice, especially on the song. Well, they've got a lot of popular songs. If you're a fan of Evanescence, you probably know which songs I'm talking about, and they're not one of my favorites. Like, you know, the same thing with a lot of these. I wouldn't put the actual band or, you know, the artist at the top as far as music all the time. I'm just going by voice. Another reminder, these are the singers that I'm choosing because of how their voice sounds to me. So this doesn't necessarily mean that they're my absolute favorite of all artists. I just love Amy Lee's voice. Yeah. All right, so the next one, and actually this is the last one on my list, and that is Florence Welch from Florence and the Machine. Her voice is awesome, and I've never seen them live. I really, 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 really love the song oh god, I'm going to forget the name of it now. I should have wrote this down. It's the one where she's drowning. Yeah, I'm totally blanking. I should have wrote it down, but her voice is beautiful. And she's another one of those that has the power. You know, she's forceful singer. But, you know, and here's another example of where I love her voice, but I don't love a lot of songs by Florence and the Machine. I love maybe 5 or 6 of them, but I really like her as a person, and I love her voice. So, now that I'm done with the top 10, I'm going to give some honorable mentions. These are some runners-up that I could not leave out because they were on my list when I made my complete and total list. So there's only 4 more that I want to talk about. And these are mostly people or women from the 80s and 90s. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is Bette Midler. And I have her on my list because her voice. Like I said, this is about voices here, not anything else. Her voice is so good in everything I've heard her in, but you know, most people, now that I'm thinking about it, most people probably, especially if you're under the age of 30, you probably are thinking of Hocus Pocus. You know, she is an actress, but she was in Hocus Pocus, and she actually did sing in that. But her, you know, she was actually a real singer. You know, she is still a real singer. She started in, I want to say the 60s, maybe even 70s at the latest. She was in the movie The Rose, and the song The Rose is one of my favorite songs of all time. And her voice in that song, and I don't even know if she wrote that song, but it's a beautiful song. It's one of my favorites, and her voice sometimes just gets me. So the next honorable mention is Madonna, and I couldn't leave her out. She's one of the most iconic female singers of ever. Not that I was a massive fan of her. I've never seen her live, but, you know, everybody's heard of Madonna, and she seems to never fade away. She's always around. She's always reinventing herself, you know, which is really cool. I like when people can evolve and not be the same all the time. But here's something that I want to say about Madonna. I grew up with her 80s stuff. You know, like a Virgin, that album, and then, you know, the couple albums after that. And so those were probably the ones that I like the most. But, you know, she's got some newer songs that I like. I think that her voice actually was better back when she was younger. And a lot of people might disagree with me on that, but I'm just talking about voices here. How much I like somebody's voice. I loved her voice in the early years. The next one on this list is Miley Cyrus, which might surprise some people because I'm usually more about rock, and she's kind of like, well, she actually, this is a good example of someone that has kind of transcended. She started off being pop, but I think I should have done my research before filming this, but I think she has done a lot of covers of rock songs, and I believe that she likes rock music, but I like her, here's the thing. The song Wrecking Ball is so, like, top 10, whatever, and, like, complete opposite of what I would like, but I like it. And I actually like the instrumental version of it, because I like the melody. I like the melody sounds pretty. It's catchy. And her voice is good because she's got that raspy voice that I like, kind of reminiscent of Stevie Nicks a little bit, maybe, with the raspiness. Not saying that I love everything by Miley Cyrus. In fact, I think I might only love maybe 4 or 5 songs by her, but I should probably listen to a little bit more of her. I think she did a version of a Pink Floyd song once, if I'm remembering correctly, and I remember, yeah, I should have done my research before filming, but her voice is great. And then the last honorable mention is Hope Sandoval from Mazzy Star. I don't even know if they're still a band anymore, but everybody knew the song Fade Into You, especially if you were around in the 90s. And her voice was just like, oh, yes. Just so ethereal, so smooth, so... She kind of had that sultry thing going on that I love about Lana Del Rey. So I was not a massive fan of Mazzy Star. Honestly, I think most of their songs sounded the same, but I really liked Fade Into You and a couple other ones, and yeah, her voice was beautiful. So there you have it. That was actually 14 of my favorite female singers. Let me know in the comments if you agree with any of these, if you like any of these, and maybe let me know what your favorite female singer is. Doesn't have to be rock, doesn't even have to be anybody that still sings, because some of the people on my list, they are not even a singer anymore, and one of them is sadly not with us anymore. So I would love to hear your comments below, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.